My name is Emily, I'm 61 years old. My husband, who is 3 years older than me, is about to retire soon. I met Jason, my husband, when I started working at a company. He was my mentor at work, a quiet man by appearance and nature, who never really sought out female company. It was I who took a liking to him and, after making my move, we started dating. He proposed, and we got married. We had a son and have been together as a couple for about 40 years. Hey, what should we do now? What do you mean, now? You've always said that once you retire, you want to travel a lot. I brought this up during dinner while he was engrossed in a baseball game on TV. Without taking his eyes off the TV, he responded. Did I say that? Yes, you did. And you even mentioned that moving abroad might be an option. Both of us could manage moving to new places well enough as we both love traveling abroad. We used to travel a lot as a family until our son was in junior high school. It seems our long-held wish will soon come true. To me, spending our retirement years with my husband has always been something to look forward to. After work settled down, after the kids grew up, after retirement, there were always afters, and our time alone together became scarce. However, his reaction was much duller than I had expected. No, moving abroad is out of the question. I love it here. And traveling? That seems like too much hassle now. What? Traveling just the two of us at this point? I don't think so. All right. That's disappointing. I thought we'd finally get some time to ourselves. But Jason is about to retire from the company he's dedicated so much to. Maybe he's feeling a sense of loss and can't think of fun things to do. With that thought, I decided not to say anything more. Go, go, go! Oh, that didn't work out. His voice filled the living room, still focused on the baseball game. One day, before heading to work, he mentioned, I forgot to tell you. I'm going for a drink with people from another department, so I'll be late. It's rare for you to go to drink. You usually don't. I thought I'd join for once since it's my last. Well, I'm off. Take care. I guess dinner can be simple today. With no dinner for him, cooking suddenly seemed like a chore. He came home late at night, in a very good mood. I drank a lot. Welcome back. Wow, you smell like alcohol. Shut up. Huh? What? He looked straight at my face with a flushed face and suddenly burst out laughing. I thought you were some stranger. Felt like I walked into a different bar. A stranger? Indeed, I am 61 years old. But I was shocked as he had never called me a stranger. Are you 61 now? You look older than that. People your age usually look younger. Maybe you should care a bit more about how you dress. I do go to the hairdresser every 2 months, and I take care of my nails and clothes. But he wasn't listening, he was too drunk. Really, you do look like an old lady, he kept saying, amused. That was funny. I'm gonna take a shower. Hey! Don't just leave your clothes on the floor. As I picked up his discarded jacket, something fell out with a clink. Huh? Something fell? It was a pair of earrings with red stones. The next day, I asked him about it. Hey, these earrings fell out of your jacket pocket. Oh? I found them on the floor at the bar when I was leaving. I think they're someone's lost item. I was planning to ask around at work today. I see. That makes sense. Well, I'm off. Take care. A week later, on Friday. Today I'll be late again, some guys are hosting a team building party. Got it. My husband left for work in high spirits. Was he really looking forward to the party that much? That day, he didn't come home until midnight, and worried, I stayed up waiting for him. Eventually, he came home in the morning. Couldn't you at least have called? Wow. You scared me. You were up? Usually, you tell me what time you'll be home, but there was no word from you this time. I was worried you might have had an accident. I even sent you emails, but you didn't reply. Annoying. What? I said you're annoying. I've only been calling all this time out of habit, It's not an obligation. But it's strange when something that always happens doesn't. I'm not a kid. Leave me alone. No need to shout. I feel sick. It was supposed to be fun. I need to get out. Where are you going? He left without answering and went out again. I'll apologize when he comes back. It was our first fight, but I decided to stay home and wait. However, he didn't return the next day or the day after. What should I do? Did I upset him that much? Just when I was thinking this, he finally came back. With a woman I didn't know. Who is this? You really smell like an old lady. It makes sense she'd be drawn to me. The woman, without introducing herself, spoke to me like that. Who are you? When I asked again, the woman finally answered. I'm Laura. Jason has been a great help to me. While saying this, she looked me up and down and snorted with laughter. You're trying hard for your age, but at 45, I definitely beat you. That's sad to say. We're about 20 years apart. Right, my apologies. They glanced at me and chuckled together. I couldn't quite grasp what was happening and just stood there. Laura has been my colleague, and we've been together for about 20 years. 20 years? Yes, I joined the company as a fresh graduate, and he was my mentor. It's just like how Jason and I met. I felt a chill and shivered all over. So, I've been deceived by you for 20 years? Deceived sounds harsh. I never lied. I said I was going out with people from other departments or going golfing with colleagues. That's just sophistry. Whatever. It's over between us. Over? Yes, let's get a divorce. After thinking for a moment, I went to my room, came back, and confronted him with a document. Here, the divorce papers. I won't take anything from you both. Wow, you're pretty understanding. He seemed surprised that I had prepared the divorce papers. No deep reason. I just kept it. Okay. Then I'll fill in my part now. He almost scribbled his signature on the divorce form. Now we can finally be a couple. Indeed, it's been a long time. They held hands and shared their joy. I let out a dry laugh at the scene. I'll submit this to the office. Just wait a bit, I'll pack my things quickly. It's helpful how fast you're handling this. Years of experience, I guess. I can read the room. I opened my suitcase for international travel and packed only what I truly needed. And so, I packed up and left the house. My next destination was the house of Jessica, Jason's aunt. When I found the earrings in Jason's jacket, I suspected he was cheating, and after consulting with Jessica, she said, let's hire a private investigator. I'll cover the costs. So, I was already aware of Laura's existence. I didn't expect it had been going on for 20 years, though. Jessica, Jason's aunt, has always treated me well, and she told me I could come to her house immediately if I ever divorced. She was even angrier than I was when the investigation results came in. Hello, sorry to drop in unexpectedly, it's Emily. Oh, Emily dear. Wait, I'm coming right now. Jessica's house, clearly larger than the neighboring homes, attracted the glances of passers-by. Emily dear. Welcome, come on in. Thank you. I was led into the living room and after taking a sip of the coffee offered, I said, I've divorced Jason. So, you finally did it. Yes. I recounted everything from the start. Upon hearing this, the usually graceful Jessica flushed with anger. What? For 20 years? And with a colleague? Jessica! Sorry, it just brought back bad memories. My late husband cheated on me with a colleague too. I see. Well, I pretended not to notice and ended up inheriting a hefty fortune. Jessica laughed heartily, making me feel somewhat better. But, Emily, I don't want you to waste your life like I did. It's better to be free than to spend your old age with such a man. Jessica. There's no need to endure. You did the right thing by divorcing. I was actually wondering if it really was the right decision. But talking to you has cleared my doubts. That's good to hear. So, will you take up that offer I've been suggesting? Yes, gladly. I was fueled by the desire for revenge against Jason, who had betrayed me for so long. 6 months after the divorce, Jessica received a call. She summoned me and switched the phone to speaker mode as soon as I answered. Hello? What's up, Jason? Why did you sell the condo on your own? It seemed Laura had moved into the condo where Jason and I used to live, and he was upset to learn that it had been sold abruptly. Well, that condo was mine to do with as I please, wasn't it? The condo was under Jessica's name, so Jason had called her. That's true, but it's cruel to do this without discussing it. Are you trying to leave me homeless? Not me, but you and your mistress. Laura is not a mistress. She's officially my wife now. All right, come over here. We need to talk anyway. Fine, I'm on my way. As the call ended, Jessica said, Now, he's on his way. This should be interesting. Yes, really. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. As Jessica opened the door, the voices of Jason and a shrill woman reached me in the living room. Explain this to me. I can't accept this. That's right. How can you just take away the house we were living in? It seemed Laura had come with him. Their complaining voices grew louder as they approached the living room. When Jason entered, he was shocked to see me. Why are you here? Why is an ex-wife at her ex-husband's relative's house? Is there a problem? Problem? I don't get it. Such noise. It's my house. I can have whoever I want here. Jessica, are you still in touch with her? We're more than in touch. What? We're like a family. Why? To keep my wealth from you. Jessica suddenly raised her voice, startling Jason. Jessica glared at her nephew as she began. I have no children, and I was going to leave all the wealth I inherited from my late husband to you. Well, I was counting on that. Don't worry, I'll manage it properly. But I changed my mind. What? Jason furrowed his brow, puzzled. What do you mean you changed your mind? Laura interjected with apparent dissatisfaction. However, Jessica ignored her. When I found out that you had been cheating on me with a woman 20 years younger, it reminded me of what I had gone through. I couldn't forgive that. Oh! Jason, you remember, don't you? How did an affair cause a scene at my husband's funeral? Yeah! Finding out my nephew was doing the same thing was a shock. I don't want to leave my inheritance to someone like that. So, what are you going to do with your inheritance? I'm the only relative you have left, aren't I? Indeed, Jason's parents had long since passed, and Jessica truly had no other relatives. That's why I went through with this. You mean you're giving it to her? Yes. Don't mess with me. It's not right for someone who's not even blood related to inherit. Even if we're not blood related, Emily will have the right to inherit. Then, all the land and property you own. Jessica then gently placed her hands on my shoulders from behind. Of course, it all belongs to Emily. The condo sale was just my way of getting back at you. With a playful giggle, Jessica looked much younger than her 70 years. But Jason, feeling mocked, was seething with anger. Yet, he seemed to be holding back his rage, knowing it wasn't wise to lash out at an aunt with assets. Laura completely broke his composure. What? That can't be right. Why are you getting so upset? I asked her, feigning ignorance. Well, you don't have to strain yourself. Especially since you've been in trouble with 3 people. What? Why do you know that? When I hired a private investigator to look into Jason's affairs, it was clear you were involved. So, I had them dig a little deeper. I leaned in close to Laura's face. And they found out you're a serial cheater with married men. You're lying, Laura, what's this about? That's exactly what it means. You were involved with 3 other married men. Laura, answer me. Explain yourself. Shaken by Jason, Laura looked down and remained silent. You might as well tell him. It could make him forgive you. She then muttered quietly. I don't need it. What? I said I don't need it. This old man. Old man? You keep calling your ex-wife an old lady, but you're quite the old man yourself. Wait, Laura always told me I looked much younger than my real age. That was clearly just flattery. With the truth about Laura revealed, Jason was so shocked he stood with his mouth agape. By the way, Laura's other lovers are in their 30s. I added helpfully. What, in their 30s? But choosing me means you really loved me, right? No. Among the four, including you, you were the least liked. What? I almost feel sorry for him now. But, working at a multinational and hearing that your aunt, who lives off land and property and has no children, would leave everything to me, I plan to marry you and keep seeing the other three. What, you were just after my money? Of course. Why else would I be with an old man who's about to retire? From a working old man to an unemployed old man, what's worse than that? You're despicable. To think I was with such a woman for 20 years. That's my line. To find out at the very end that I won't inherit anything after 20 years, what a waste of time. Damn you. Ouch. As Jason's anger became uncontrollable, he grabbed Laura by the collar. Thinking this was a bad move, I wedged myself between them to pull them apart. What an ugly fight. A mud fight? Next thing, he was grabbing my collar. But I didn't flinch. In fact, I was almost hoping he would hit me, thinking I could then involve the police. However, it didn't come to that, and my fantasy ended there. Then, fixing her disheveled clothes, Laura said, I'm returning this old man. I don't want him either. He's of no use to me. I feigned trouble to make Jessica laugh. With both women rejecting him, Jason's face was on the verge of exploding. You two are getting cocky. I'm well aware that I'm an old lady, so it doesn't bother me at all. If Emily is an old lady, then I guess that makes me a great old lady. Jessica joked, causing Jason to click his tongue. Oh, is that the right attitude? Didn't you come here to discuss the condo sale? Jason's face lit up in realization, and he took a deep breath. Regaining some composure. He then said to Jessica, Please, can you stop the sale of the condo? Otherwise, I'll have nowhere to live. It's already signed, so it's too late. Why? That's funny. At this comedic exchange, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Watching Jason being tossed around by three women was too amusing. It felt like we were tossing Jason around like a ball. Realizing it wasn't good to laugh further, I restrained myself and said, You're going to get your pension soon, and you have savings, right? You can find somewhere to live with that. What's the matter? Is there a problem? No, not really. As Jason stumbled over his words, I smirked secretly. There's a big problem. Because he has. Oh right, you have debts, don't you? Sorry, I forgot. Jason looked at me, startled. How do you know about that? I made sure it wouldn't get out. Didn't I say I hired a private investigator for the infidelity check? That's when I found out about your debts too. You've borrowed quite a bit. It must have been hard keeping it from me and our son all this time. Damn. Well, he's been hiding his affairs for 20 years. Hiding debts is child's play for him. Good job, master of secrets. Being ridiculed by both Jessica and me, Jason's face turned red again. I'm really glad I kept our living expenses and our son's education fund separate. Otherwise, our life would be difficult now. He has that much debt? Laura asked tentatively, so I answered her clearly. Yes. So you better work hard on that debt repayment. Marriage is a team effort after all. No joke. I'm getting a divorce. Wait, you steal my husband and then say that? Irresponsible much? Make sure you take care of this old man till the end. I leaned in and whispered to Laura. Laura stepped back slowly, eventually cornered against the wall. Otherwise, I'll tell your company about you having affairs with 3 men inside. I still have several classmates there in high positions. Not that. If I lose my job, I can't survive my own. So you'll work through it with Jason? Yes. Wait, your affair was with someone at the company? Who is it? Tell me. Stop bringing it up. Laura said she won't divorce you, so you should be grateful for that. Your debt is on her, after all. Damn. More surprising is that Jason's savings are nearly depleted. The pension will first go to debt repayment. Wonder how much will be left. No savings? Laura looked at me as if to say, are you kidding? Yes. Let's hope your pension exceeds your debts. Laura clasped her head in her hands. This is the worst. My life is over. To her, I said, thank you, Laura. You've really saved me. Saved? Yes, thanks to you, I could divorce Jason, who's burdened with debt. I'm truly grateful. You knew from the start. When I found out this man had debts, I thought, no way I'm getting dragged into this. Then you came along and gave Jason the push he needed to ask for a divorce. Oh my gosh! Laura scratched her head in frustration. Just moments ago, she might have thought her future was rosy as the wife of a man inheriting land and property. But in an instant, she became the wife of a man swamped with debt. The shock must have been immense. I placed my hand on Laura's back. It's your fault. All because of you. Laura cried out to me. But her words didn't touch my heart at all. I felt neither regret nor apology. So I said, you got what you deserved. Laura choked on her words for a moment, then burst into tears. Why did this happen to me? Seeing Laura's condition, Jason recoiled. Your wife is crying, you could at least try to comfort her. But being comforted by him would probably just make her angrier. Jason seemed to understand this, as he said nothing. Shall we call it a day then? I'm tired. It's tough being a great old lady. That sounds good, shall we make some coffee? That would be nice. Come on, you two, hurry up and leave. You need to vacate that condo within 3 months, right? As Jessica spoke, Jason suddenly grabbed my arm. Feeling his touch, I was overcome with disgust. What are you doing? Stop it. Emily, I was wrong. Can we start over? No way. I laughed at him begging. It seemed Jason didn't hear her. Is he that desperate? Start over, are you serious? You think I'd agree to that? I said coldly, and Jason flinched but then gripped my arm tighter. I won't complain if you inherit Jessica's estate. In return, I want you to help pay off my debts. So, marry me again. That offers me no benefits. There is one. You won't have to spend a lonely old age alone. You don't want to be single at your age, do you? I plan to enter a high-end nursing home before I can't live on my own. I'm not worried. A high-end nursing home? Yes, it's almost like a luxury condo. Jessica plans to move there too, right? That's right. I'm still enjoying life with Emily for now, but eventually, that's the plan. I'll scout it out for us. Thank you. And about remarrying me? Absolutely not. I'm begging you. You're all I have. You're just after the money. Sorry, but I have no intention of helping you. After 40 years together, you don't feel any compassion? I glanced at Jason's pitiful face and said, compassion? That disappeared when I found out about your 20 years of infidelity. Sorry. Jason let go of my arm and stood there, deflated. I addressed the two defeated figures. This is really the end of the discussion. Enjoy your retirement together. They remained still for a moment, but Jason weakly said, let's go, and they started moving. Like turtles, Jason and Laura made their way down the hallway and finally left through the front door. All right. Jessica quickly locked the door and secured the chain. It's over, isn't it? Yes, truly, thank you. I said to Jessica, grateful for her help in escaping that man. Shall we have coffee, or should we crack open some beer to celebrate? That sounds great. A drink in the middle of the day. Jessica and I began to drink, laughing together. I slept well that night, feeling great. I wondered what those 40 years had been for, but dwelling on sadness was a waste of the life I had left. That thought made me feel positive. All thanks to Jessica. She says she'll move into a nursing home, but I hope to live with her as long as possible. Later, Jason retired from his company. However, he continued to work at another company due to his debts. Laura is also working hard. She was, after all, a high earner at the same company as Jason. It's a shame she had to keep working even after retiring, huh? Oh, is it my fault? Jessica, your jokes are really funny. I aim to be a delightful grandma. It seems their peaceful retirement is still far off. That's right. Well, they'd better keep working. It keeps them from getting senile, surely. Definitely. Any sympathy for those two? None. Good. I was worried I might have done too much. Not at all. I can say that for sure. Thank you. We laughed together. Living with just the two of us in this spacious house was more fun than I expected, and every day was a joy. Jessica would make snacks while chatting away or watch dramas, seemingly enjoying her late bloom. Sometimes we went out together to explore new restaurants. Something I could never have done with Jason. By the way, when is your son coming? Jessica asked while gardening. Next Saturday, is that okay? I replied while pruning the bushes. I don't mind at all. It's been a while since I've seen him. It's quite moving to think he's all grown up and working. Really, time flies so quickly. We must cherish every day. At our age, we need to keep trying new things. I never thought I'd get into gardening at this stage of my life. That's fine. It's good exercise. We want to stay healthy as long as we can. Yes. On a weekday afternoon, spending my days peacefully and with new challenges, I am filled with happiness.
I married you to take care of her, remember? My husband said with a smirk as he lugged a massive black suitcase behind him and stepped out through the front door, leaving his bedridden mother and me behind. He was off to Hawaii with a skip in his step. I couldn't believe he was going on a vacation, leaving his ailing mother. Although he was never the most considerate man, this was a new law that left me speechless. I swore to myself he'd pay. At that moment, my mother-in-law stood up with a smile and said, "Let's go us two." I was so taken aback, I didn't know how to respond. "Go where?" I managed to ask. She just grinned back at me and twinkled in her eye. "My name's Susan. I'm 42. I met my husband at work. We became close after many shared coffee breaks and got married when I was 33. I quit the job after marriage. Since then, I've been working part-time at the daycare center, using my degree in early childhood education to contribute to our household expenses, all while managing the house. Both my parents are no longer here. Both of my parents passed away from cancer. It happened when I was 30. My father passed first, and my mother followed soon after. I've been pouring all the love they left behind into my mother-in-law and the kids at the daycare. My mother-in-law treats me with such kindness. That alone makes my marriage to my husband worthwhile. I truly love her. Sadly, we've been unable to have children, and now I'm this old. It's really heartbreaking that I can't show her the face of her grandchild. I feel really sorry about it. Moreover, my husband tends to vent his frustration on her, which fills me with guilt. Why can't my husband cherish his own blood-related parent? Although his behavior toward her at home is appearing, he takes good care of her in public, which stops me from getting angry at him. To make up for it, I rented an apartment about a 15-minute drive from her house, so I can easily check up on her living alone. It was during one of those days when I was doing housework after finishing my job. My cell phone rang. It was from my husband, who should have been at work. "Hello? What's happened?" When I answered, I could hear the distress in my husband's voice. Well, according to him, my sprightly mother-in-law had fallen and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. I was shocked and worried. She was such an active, healthy woman. She is at the hospital right now, but I can leave work. Could you go to the hospital instead? He asked. I agreed immediately, and after taking off my apron, I rushed to the hospital he had mentioned. Upon reaching, I found my mother-in-law lying there, dressed in a patient gown. I'm sorry you had to come. It would have been better if John was here. Seeing the genuine regrets on my mother-in-law's face, I was flustered. Don't apologize. You are like my real mother. It's only natural for your daughter to come. You always put me in your debt, Susan. Thank you. Her normally vibrant smile was dimmed. It was sad to see her so unlike herself. From what I gathered, she had been knocked over by a large man on the street and had fallen down. I heard that the big man had fled, feigning ignorance. I learned that there had been a police incident before I arrived, and to avoid burdening my exhausted mother-in-law, I sat down and called the doctor to ask the details. But luckily enough, she hadn't fractured her hip, but rather the part of her back close to it. She would need to be hospitalized for a bit, but I was told she would be fine with physical therapy after that. This brought me some relief. Hey, I hate to ask, but could you go to the hospital and take care of Mom for a while? My husband said as soon as he came home. I had already informed about the severity of the injury and doctor's advice to him over the phone. I sighed at the sound of his voice, which didn't seem apologetic at all even as he said sorry. But you'll at least visit her, right? I asked my husband, who always made plans to go out on Saturdays and Sundays, but he let out an exaggerated sigh and said, No, I got plans on the weekends. I've been invited to play golf and drink by my boss. I can't say no to that. I was so shocked that I couldn't say a word. But she's your mother. As I said this, my husband just said with a faint smile, So what? My job comes first. I leave everything to you. Oh, and I've already eaten. With that, he stripped off his suit and headed for the bathroom. It was his usual routine, but I thought this was too strange, even for him. He often ate dinner before coming home, but his boss couldn't be so terrible as to prevent him from even paying a visit. At the moment, I made up my mind, but not yet. The real challenge was still ahead. I decided to take a leave of absence from work due to needing to prepare for things like changing clothes, since the hospitalization would last about a month. My director gave me his approval willingly, and so a month passed. In the end, my husband didn't visit even once. I didn't feel angry anymore. I was just tired of my husband. That was 2 days before her discharge. It's about Mom. When I asked him what he meant, my husband unilaterally continued the conversation. After her discharge, I was to take care of her, and to do that, I would have to live with my mother-in-law in her house. All of this was up to me, and since he didn't know when he would return, he would have to keep our rented apartment as it is. Since my mother-in-law still needed physical therapy and nursing care, I decided to extend my leave of absence. Although the number of children to take care of increasing during the summer vacation, my director kindly said, Please manage it properly. While my mother-in-law was now able to sit up in bed, she still needed help from others. That is, if she was left alone, she would become bedridden. I rented a remote control electric reclining bed for my mother-in-law's room, bought a bouquet the next day, and went to pick up my mother-in-law who was being discharged. My mother-in-law was very pleased to receive the bouquet and thanked me many times. My husband didn't come. I knew why, but I didn't do anything for now. Doing all the housework and caring for my mother-in-law was hard but not painful. I found it heartwarming to see her gradually recovering. I had been living in my mother-in-law's house for 3 months. It was around the time when her health started to improve. My husband, who hadn't provided any care to his biological mother for those 3 months, instead often being madly running off to our rental house, was now in good spirits. Next to him was a large black suitcase. Where are you planning to go? Even though I already knew the answer, yet I dared to ask. It's Hawaii, baby. Gotta burn through some PDO. I'll be there for a week. I married you for the caregiving, so I'm counting on ya. As he left, looking down on me, he picked up his large suitcase, opened the front door, and left. He cheerfully left his bedridden mother and me behind, headed off to Hawaii. How could he leave his own mother, who needs care, and go on a trip? He's always been a man without much empathy, but this was just too much. It left me speechless. I will make him suffer. That's when my mother-in-law, smiling, rose to her feet. Well, let's go ourselves. I was so surprised to see her suddenly stand up that I couldn't react properly. Where to? I asked in return. She said with a sparkling smile. To our new home. My mother-in-law said it with a carefree tone. However, I was more concerned about her injury. Mother-in-law, when were you able to get out of bed? I was bored being alone, so I started doing physical therapy. There's nothing wrong with my bones anymore. I'm sorry for keeping it a secret. I just wanted to surprise you. My mother-in-law laughed cheerfully. My vibrant mother-in-law was back. However, I was still in a state of confusion. I'm glad to see you standing, but a new home? When I asked, my mother-in-law responded in a bright voice. Yes, let's get everything moved while he's gone. Don't worry, I had a modern house built just 3 stations away. We can move with just one phone call. Then my mother-in-law told me something unexpected. She had received a large sum of money from the insurance after my father-in-law, who had passed away in a car accident. A friend she met at daycare had offered to rent this house. I didn't think this house, as small and old as it is, was enough to leave to you. She said the new house was barrier-free, considering our old age. It was already around the time I got injured, and while I was deciding when to move, this whole situation came about. But my mother-in-law continued. Now I can repay you for your kindness. Let's quickly call the movers and get this done. She chuckled, and I couldn't help but smile too. We rented a wheelchair for my mother-in-law, who could stand but still found walking difficult. We took a medical transport taxi and headed to our new home. The new home looked like a church, complete with a yard. It was a 2-story, stand-alone house. That day, we asked the movers to transfer everything except my husband's personal belongings. Setting up little things like plates was one thing, but getting the larger pieces like wardrobes places correctly, and then just turning on the electricity and gas was another. My mother-in-law had quickly arranged it all over the phone. Susan, thank you so much. Out of the blue, she said this to me as we were settled down, eating takeout. Oh no, you don't need to thank me, what she said next took me by surprise. It's alright, I know everything. It seems like we ended up hiring the same private investigator. Suddenly, it clicked. I realized she knew that I knew why my husband had gone to Hawaii. You knew? She nodded sadly. Well, I am his mother after all. I knew something was off. Now, what should we do? I had made up my mind. Let's decide when he returns from Hawaii. A week had passed since my husband left for Hawaii. My cell phone rang, notifying me of a call from my husband. As I expected, I thought to myself and picked up the phone. Hey, what's going on? I can open the house and no one's answering the doorbell. Where are you? I inadvertently grimaced at his loud voice. The house keys have been changed for the new resident. Your belongings are at your place. Hearing this, my husband shouted in frustration. What? What's happening? I patiently explained to my clueless husband. Your mother's house is hers, not yours, and the only house under your name is rented apartment. So, even though it was hassle, I moved all your stuff to the apartment. As expected, my husband blew up. What's with your attitude? Where are you? At the apartment? I let out a sigh. I can't tell you where I am. Your things are packed in suitcase. So why don't you go back to the apartment quickly and maybe call your mistress? Suddenly, my husband was flustered. What? Why? How do you? I sighed again. Reflect on your actions. I had a private investigator look into it because I was suspicious. I'm prepared for divorce. Wait, let me at least talk to ma'am. Mother-in-law, John would like to talk to you. What do you think? I turned to my mother-in-law sitting on the bed. May I borrow your phone for a moment? My mother-in-law said this with a smile, so I handed over my cell phone with a smile too. Oh, Mom, come on, you're kidding, right? Enough with the jokes. My mother-in-law said, pretending to be surprised. Are you still saying such things? Even after having an affair? Don't you have any shame? It seems like I may have gone wrong in bringing you up. Everything Susan is saying is correct. There is nothing more to add. After saying that, she handed the phone back to me, still smiling, and added, If you have something to say, go ahead. I'm sorry. It seems like I read him not properly, so it led to you marrying such a foolish and overly optimistic person. My mother-in-law spoke loudly, making sure the voice could be heard on the other end of the phone. Well, that's how it is. She unilaterally hung up the phone and turned it off for now. We are now in our long-awaited new home. We had just finished the morning chores and were having a casual conversation with my mother-in-law. Her room was the spacious garden view room. My room was on the second floor. The living room and kitchen were on the first floor. I opened my cell phone on the small shelf, and finally, my mind settled and laughter welled up within me. My mother-in-law was also smiling warmly and kindly. It felt good. Now, how did we end up in this situation? Well, believe it or not, my mother-in-law was also using the same private investigation agency to investigate my husband's whereabouts. The reason the agency didn't inform us was because they had a strict confidentiality obligation towards the client, and it was effective within families, so they couldn't say anything. My resourceful and energetic mother-in-law had been skillfully using the phone while doing physical therapy on her bed. Her proactive nature was truly admirable. It turned out that my husband had been cheating for quite some time. Furthermore, his outings with his boss were actually visits to strip clubs. His affair partner was a woman from one of their business partners. Apparently, he approached her himself while she was working as a salesperson. It's such a ridiculous story. I wish I could return all the time I spent living with such a person. That's why I intended to hire a lawyer and get a divorce. It might make my husband happy as well. He can fully indulge in his beloved saleswoman. It remains to be seen what will happen when his facade crumbled. A few days later, please, don't divorce me. I've never seen my husband so pathetic before. When I went to the apartment to pick up some of my stuff, he suddenly appeared and apologized. Why? You have someone else, don't you? I naturally replied. In response, my husband burst into tears. He can't handle doing household chores on his own. His affair with the saleswoman was purely a way to fulfill his desires, and he never thought of marrying her seriously. And above all, my mother-in-law said she wants to sever ties with him when he got divorced. Those factors have piled up, and it seems like my husband is at his wit's end. Honestly, I couldn't care less about what happened with his affair partner, and I don't have even a tiny bit of love or sympathy left for my husband. And there's one more thing. If we get divorced, my mother-in-law has offered to adopt me. Apparently, it's her way of repairing me. I was delighted by the idea because I love my mother-in-law, but it also puzzled me since we don't have any grandchildren. Nevertheless, my mother-in-law strongly urged me to go through with the adoption. One reason is that she wants to live together, but there's also an underlying motive. She wants to transfer all her inhabitants to me because she feels responsible for the trouble her incompetent son caused. My mother-in-law is seriously intent on severing ties with her son, so I must also face this situation seriously. To be honest, I was truly happy about it. When she proposed the adoption, I even cried at first, having lost my parents at a young age and been betrayed by my husband. My mother-in-law's smile was my only solace. You are getting what you deserve for neglecting your mother-in-law. Now you have no choice but to be alone, I said coldly. Can I at least talk to my mom? My mother-in-law has no intention of talking to you anymore. If you keep insisting, I'll call the police. What will you do? Upon hearing this, my husband burst into tears while making sounds. I looked at his face expressionlessly. Since the discussion with my husband didn't go well, we ended up hiring a lawyer and living into the family court. The result was, of course, in my favor. Thanks to his infidelity and visits to strip clubs, I was able to divorce him smoothly, even though he argued. Although my savings, which I had planned to use for building a house someday, were halved in the division of assets, I don't mind. My mother-in-law's condition has been steadily improving, and by the time the trial was over, she had fully recovered and even resumed her works. Today, we are celebrating the completion of the adoption process by dining at the fancy restaurant. Having a meal while chatting happily truly brings me happiness, and I am thrilled that she treats me not only as a real daughter, but even more affectionately. In the future, it's likely that I will need to provide constant care for my mother-in-law, but I have no complaints. In any case, my mother-in-law seems to have truly had enough of my ex-husband, so she decided to break off relations with her son and never meet again. I had already had the lawyer prepare a document for severing ties when the time came, and to ensure that I didn't receive any phone calls from my ex-husband. My mother-in-law had set up call rejection for his calls. By request, I did it for her. By the way, I heard from a former co-worker the other day. My mother-in-law is waiting with a gentle smile for the construction. John seems to be unable to pay the rent and utilities on his own, so he borrows money from his boss every month. My mother-in-law covered her mouth with her hand. Oh dear, I feel sorry for him. That's right, I said with a smile. He has borrowed money from various financial institutions as well. The reason for the divorce has leaked through my friends, and it seems that he is not respected by his superiors, and the story of infidelity had spread, making him feel uncomfortable at work. It's quite satisfying. While it is said that one should not take pleasure in the misfortunes of others, I used to believe that it didn't apply to me. But now, it's different. When it comes to my ex-husband, the misfortunes of others are indeed sweet. While enjoying a fancy dinner, I wished for further misfortune upon my ex-husband.
For a moment, I had no idea what had happened. It wasn't until the vase my husband had thrown in a fit of rage shattered that I finally understood what was going on. He had thrown water from the vase at me. "Make sure this room is cleaned up by the time I get back home," he demanded. "Yes, I'll make sure it's tidy," I replied. It was my fault for having been napping. After blaming me relentlessly, my husband seemed satisfied and headed off on his business trip. He must have thought he could say anything he wanted, as I had no other place to go. His behavior had been growing increasingly abusive. Little did he know, he was about to lose his own home. My name is Maria Hastings, I'm 36 years old. I married my husband, Alex, 5 years ago. We had what you could call a workplace romance. We started at the same time, and over the course of working together, venting about work and supporting each other, we began to date. One thing led to another and we ended up getting married. I didn't quit my job after marriage. Thankfully, my boss had told me, "Don't hesitate to take maternity leave when you need to." So that was our plan. However, we struggled to have a child. "Could it be, Maria, that you're infertile?" It's not necessarily just me with a problem, is it? No, usually the woman is the problem. There were times when we would argue like this. But after many years of fertility treatment, I finally became pregnant. Alex wasn't too thrilled about the treatments, so I paid for it all from my savings I had from before we were married. I had practically used up all my savings, but I was genuinely happy to be pregnant. Then came another surprise. What, twins? Yes, I was blessed with twins. Though the fear and anxiety of raising twins were overwhelming, Alex was simply overjoyed. Twins are going to be so adorable. Wow, I can't wait. This is going to be fantastic. Fantastic, huh? While his carefree attitude did irk me at times, I knew he was trying to encourage me in his own way, and it made me happy. Despite some complications during pregnancy, both babies were born healthy. They were fraternal twins, a boy and a girl. We named them Jack and Lily. Raising twins was indeed tough. My recovery was slow after giving birth, and both our mothers had to come and help us. When they left after a month, I was so overwhelmed with anxiety that I burst into tears. I can't handle both of them by myself. Please don't go. It was a cry from the heart, a genuine plea for help. But they had their own lives, and this 1 month had already been a big ask. We'll do this together. I'll step up, too. Alex persuaded me, and I somehow managed to regain my composure. He patted my head, saying, "You're not alone, Maria," and it gave me a moment of relief. But it didn't take long for the truth to hit me. Alex was all talk. The idea of raising them together was a pipe dream. He wouldn't lift a finger unless I asked him to. Taking initiative was apparently too big of an ask for him. There were even times when he refused to help, even when I begged him to. Change Jack's diaper, please. I'm nursing Lily right now. Yeah, no, I can't. This kid did a number 2. Maria, you do it. My husband flatly refused to change the diaper. No, I told you, I'm nursing. Well, you can go when you're done. Modern diapers are great, he can wait. The smell is making me nauseous. I think I'm gonna throw up, I need to take a break. What? Hey, wait a minute, Alex. This was what parenting was to my husband, doing only what he felt like doing, when he felt like doing it. In the end, I had no choice but to do it all by myself. By the time the twins turned 1, I decided to return to work. We lived in a rural area, and luckily both kids got into daycare. It was my first time back at work in a long time, but everyone, including my coworkers, was kind. Despite returning to work, I felt as though I had become a rookie. Many people sympathized with me, saying how tough it must be to balance work and childcare. But honestly, it was easier after my babies started daycare. During lunch breaks, I could eat without worrying about the twins, and I could even have conversations with my coworkers. Single-handed parenting was harder for me. But there were also troubling matters. The children's health issues. Inevitably, sudden early leave or time off increased, and every time, I had to apologize to those around me. Of course, I asked Alex for help, but he feigned ignorance. He came up with nonsensical excuses like, "It's hard for me too, I had to work even when you were off." When he saw the look of dissatisfaction on my face, he would say, "Well, you shouldn't have taken a job then." And then, one day about 3 months after I returned to work, my husband said this in the presence of my mother-in-law. "Children should be taken care of by their mothers at home until they're at least 3 years old. They keep getting sick because you force them into daycare at such a young age. Don't you feel bad about causing trouble at work?" I wondered what he was talking about. I did feel bad. Unlike him, who can freely work overtime, I am working desperately, feeling uncomfortable. Don't speak as if you know. I wanted to shout back at him, but I held it in because my mother-in-law was present. My mother-in-law, who was there, seemed a bit awkward, but she seemed to agree with my husband on the whole. "Well, dear, you don't need to force yourself to work. If you're ever in trouble, just let me know, and we can help you out financially," she said. With such a statement, there was no way I could say I wanted to work. And so, I resigned and returned to a life of solo parenting. However, things were different this time. Income. Unlike during my last maternity leave, my income now that I had resigned was zero. My husband's income wasn't exactly plentiful. Naturally, our household finances began to tighten. Hey, our payments for this month, we have car tax to deal with and it's tough. Huh? So what? He retorted, sounding rather irritable though he understood the situation. Could we borrow some money from your parents? I asked my husband, hesitantly. His mother had always told us that we could rely on her if we needed anything. So, I thought we might be able to ask for her help through him. However, he grimaced and dismissed the idea instantly. What? Are you trying to sponge off my family? He said. Not sponging. I was thinking we could pay them back when I start working again. No way, absolutely not. We're not borrowing any money. Figure it out, managing our finances is your job. He concluded and ended the discussion. Despite his response, I tried to negotiate several times when he was in a good mood, but it was all in vain. Figure it out, he said, but my savings from before we got married had been spent on fertility treatments. I had nothing left. I couldn't borrow money from my own family either, because my mother raised me alone and money was always tight. After much consideration, I decided to sell my car. By selling it, I managed to get some money. When I told my husband about it, he seemed satisfied, if not a bit smug. I've always thought it was a waste. You stay at home, you don't need a car. It worked out well, didn't it? In our area with limited bus services, a car was essential. From now on, any outings with the twins would be on foot. How am I supposed to do the shopping? Tears welled up in my eyes, but I held them back. At this point, I started considering divorce. My husband continued to contribute to childcare only when he felt like it. He did love our kids. But he was not consistent. All these issues were piling up, and I was losing sight of a future with my husband. I wanted to talk to my mother about the possibility of a divorce first. But something was preventing me from doing that. It was my grandmother's care. Not too long ago, my grandmother fell ill and needed caregiving. As a result, my mom moved in with her, taking care of her at home while juggling her job. I couldn't bear to burden her with the news of my divorce. I feared it would only add to her stress. So I didn't tell her. What's more, if my grandma's there, I wouldn't be able to move back home even if I did get a divorce. No job, no savings, and nowhere else to go. With these circumstances, I couldn't muster the courage to go through with the divorce. My husband, perhaps realizing I wasn't going anywhere, grew increasingly domineering. He'd complain if dinner wasn't plentiful enough or tut if the room was a mess. He turned into an absolute tyrant. Unable to resist him, I simply tried not to upset him. Before I knew it, Jack and Lily had turned too. They were adorable but had developed a will of their own, making it difficult to handle them. Today, as soon as I turned my back, they had again mercilessly covered the carpet with lines from a permanent marker. Ah! Not again! How did you get the marker? I'm sure I had put it away in the drawer. Oh! Was it Alex again? As I scolded them, both of them started crying out loud. It was nearly nap time, so they must have been tired too. Before I knew it, they had fallen asleep. While trying to find a moment to lay them down, I let out a sigh. I had to do something before my husband got home. I was so sleepy. The kids have started crying at night again recently. Just need to go upstairs. And then, my consciousness faded. Hey, what are you doing? When I opened my eyes, I was drenched. It took me a moment to understand what had happened. Standing before me was my husband, looking as fierce as a beast. While I'm sweating buckets working, you're napping? Must be nice. With that, he threw something next to me, making a clink sound. That's when I snapped back to reality. It was a broken vase. I must have dozed off, and he had doused me with the water from the vase. The act of him throwing the vase itself was frightening. If he had missed, it could have hit me. he probably wouldn't have cared if it had. But what about Jack and Lily? When I glanced around in fear, I could hear the kids' laughter and the sound of a cartoon from the other room. Thank God. Hey, are you even listening? Yes. I answered my husband, my gaze still lowered. God, I envy you. I'm working my tail off, and you're napping. Must be nice, being a housewife. It was pointless to argue with him during these times. Keeping my head bowed, I simply said, I'm sorry. Have you prepared for my business trip starting tomorrow? Yes. When I handed him the bag packed with his clothes, he quickly looked inside and nodded. Making me this upset before a business trip, I can't stand it. It's so irritating. I'm sorry, I repeated. I could see him smirking. Make sure you clean the room before I get back. Yes, I'll make it spotless, I promised. Did you hear me? Make it so clean I won't recognize it. Remember, you don't have anywhere else to go. Just do as I say. When I nodded, Alex looked very pleased. He whistled a merry tune as he left the house. When the front door clicked shut and the sound of the car engine faded away, I opened the sliding door to the next room. Jack, Lily. There were the twins, playing and giggling, and my mother, with her ears covered as much as possible, crying her heart out. Seeing me, she gently let go of the children and hugged me with both arms. Mom. Maria, you did well, you held on. Saying that, she hugged me tight, putting strength into her hands. Actually, a few hours before Alex came home, my mother had been here since earlier in the day. I got a call from her this morning. She told me that Grandma was finally moved into a care facility. We had been looking for a place for a while, and finally found one. She had called to say, now I can come and help you, Maria. At her thoughtfulness, I couldn't help but cry on the phone, so worried as she was, she decided to visit me. I can't believe Alex would do such a terrible thing. We had discussed it beforehand, but I guess she didn't think it would be this bad. I, too, never thought he would go as far as to throw water at me. My mother's voice trembled with anger. Before I went to sleep, my mother was upstairs hanging laundry. And when she came down, the three of us were still asleep. Since the children woke up first, she had them play in the next room so as not to wake me. She wanted to rush out and confront him right away, but she was worried about the kids, so she turned up the volume on the TV and covered their ears. She must have been scared too. Thank you, Mom. My mom nodded. First, take a quick bath. Then we'll talk, and patted my shoulder. After I came out of the bath, my mom was on the phone. Thank you for your assistance. She hung up the phone in a cheerful tone. Mom, who were you talking to? She smiled and told me. She also told me about her plans for the future. When I heard everything, I thought it sounded interesting. But do you think it will go that smoothly? Don't worry, I'm with you. Let's do our best together. She then hugged me tightly again. At the time, I didn't think my mom would go that far. The next day, I was back at my old workplace to seek advice. It was encouraging that my mother had become my ally, but my main concern about getting a divorce was money. I would likely get custody, but I couldn't expect Alex to willingly pay child support. I don't have any special qualifications, and if I could return to my old job, I would be grateful. I wouldn't want to work in the same place as my husband, but if the departments are different, it's possible to avoid meeting face to face. Even if I can't return, I would be grateful to learn about opportunities in the same industry. I thought I'd give it a shot and seek advice. That's why I came. My former boss, Catherine, greeted me with a smile, saying, "Long time no see." Catherine is a woman I admire. She has even given me advice when I had a fight with Alex. Long time no see, sorry for the sudden visit. No worries, what's up? I was not sure how much to share as Alex would continue to work here. I thought it wouldn't be appropriate to mention the incident of him throwing a vase of water at me. I didn't want to make it difficult for Catherine. So I told her that I was considering divorce from Alex and looking for a job. I'd be happy to come back here, but if that's not possible, Do you know of any other good places? I knew this might be an inconvenient request, but I was desperate. Catherine must have been surprised. That's what I thought, but her response was unexpected. I knew it. Maria, I have something unpleasant to tell you. Can you listen calmly? Catherine began to speak with a solemn look. Her story was shocking but somehow made sense. So that's what happened. I'm sorry, this is probably the last thing you wanted to hear. No, thank you. This will give me an advantage. Thank you very much. I'm glad I consulted with Catherine. Under normal circumstances, it would be odd to feel joy, but there were unexpected gains. But that wasn't all. Catherine spoke to the higher-ups about my return to work. Apparently, they were in need of extra hands, so my return to work was easily decided. I'm on your side, Maria. Keep pushing, but don't overdo it. We'll be waiting. Thank you so much. Catherine replied with a smile, well, it's not just me, I think everyone is on your side. One less worry for me. Now all that's left is to settle things with my husband. A few days later, a call came in from my husband, where I was staying with my kids and my parents. Hey! What's going on? He was shouting as usual, but there was a hint of desperation in his voice. What do you mean? I heard that you're planning to return to work. I got the info. This must be Catherine's doing. She said she would spread the news around to make it easier for me to return, but I never imagined it would reach my husband who's away on a business trip. You seem well informed, who told you? It was a simple question. But for some reason, he hesitated to answer. Even when I pressed him, he avoided the question. Anyway, apparently there are rumors that we're getting a divorce, so I'm going to the office right now to quash them. No way I'm letting you return to work. I'm finishing up my business trip and coming back now, let's meet at the office. Figure out something to do with the kids, don't bring them. He was in a panic. He acts big at home, but it seems he cares about his image at the office. Well, I know there are other reasons. I texted Catherine, I'm coming over now. And headed to the office. My husband had already arrived. The moment he saw me, he glared at me for an instant, but immediately switched to a smile. Such a facade. Where are the kids? My mom is watching them. I see. My husband and I entered the building where the office is located. As soon as we arrived at the floor of the office, and entered the room of my old department, a chorus of welcome back greeted us. When I looked, my former colleagues, bosses, and subordinates were clapping and smiling, coming over to us. In an instant, my husband and I were surrounded. Catherine was in the crowd. She took my hand and once again said, "Welcome back." My husband next to me looked shaken and had an awkward smile. Why is everyone gathered? What's going on? My husband asked with a wry smile. Catherine answered him. We saw Maria and we couldn't help but come over. She's coming back next month, right? We can't wait. Next month? So soon? Ignoring my husband who had a question mark above his head, I started chatting with my other colleagues and Catherine. What about the kids today? My mom is watching them. Ah, right. They are not in daycare yet. Perhaps seeing this as an opportunity, my husband's eyes lit up. That's right, I'm grateful that you guys offered her to return, but without a daycare placement. We don't have anyone to look after the kids, so I was thinking of declining her return today. Wait, what are you talking about, Alex? Catherine looked puzzled at my husband. My husband was taken aback. What do you mean, what? I'm just stating facts. Don't you know, Alex? Did you know we've got an on-site daycare now? To my husband's blank face, Catherine explained simply. An on-site daycare is, as the name suggests, a daycare located within the company. It's a place where employees' children can be looked after, and for now, there are plenty of spaces, and all applicants can be accommodated. So you see, there's no problem. With a smirk, Catherine explained, well, indeed. But keep in mind that the on-site daycare only accepts children up to 3 years old. So after that, you'll have to look for a preschool. At this, my husband's eyes lit up again. Well, unfortunately, that's a problem then. Our kids are turning 3 soon, aren't they? Since he was asking for my agreement, I tilted my head in confusion. Huh? What's so problematic? It's okay. You hear stories all the time about kids not getting accepted into preschools. Plus, we have twins, so it's going to be tough. As his words mumbled off, I ended up saying, "It's okay. Single parents are given some priority." Huh? Single parent? With that, I pulled out a piece of paper as if I had been waiting for this moment. I handed it to my husband as everyone watched. This is a divorce lawyer's business card, Alex. Please divorce me. Holding the business card, my husband was trembling. Why is this happening? You must have some idea. I will never forget what you did to me and what you didn't do. My husband flinched for a moment, then shook his head in protest. That was just a misunderstanding. Divorcing over that? Oh? Should I mention a bigger reason for divorce? Like infidelity, perhaps? My husband's body jerked. His complexion visibly worsened. There's no use pretending you don't know. Everyone else does. You're having an affair with the daughter of one of our clients, aren't you? Did she accompany you on your business trip this time? I heard there were people who saw you. My husband said, "No, that girl is," denying it verbally, but his gaze darted left and right. This was the valuable information that Catherine had provided. You've been acting superior this whole time. Being a housewife is so easy, isn't it? Isn't it more leisurely for you to dump the child raising on me and cheat? I hated being in the same workplace as you. It looks like you'll be able to leave me alone. He was having an affair with the daughter of a business partner, even though he was married. He should face suitable consequences for that. That's not. You can stay here and get chewed out. I'm going home first. Wait! Hey! My husband tried to stop me, but he was restrained by everyone around him. After that, he was severely scolded and punished. But it didn't end there. I was getting ready to take a bath one evening when my cell phone suddenly rang. It was my husband. Hello. Hey, Maria! What the hell is this all about? My husband on the other end of the line sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Actually, it seemed like he was already crying. What's wrong? I came home to find that our house is gone. It's completely cleared out. What's going on, Maria? Where are Jack and Lily? I nodded and said, "Ah." Then I explained to him. Actually, after my husband left on his business trip, the person my mother had been talking to on the phone was a real estate agent. Since they'd been saying for a while that they wanted to buy the house, she told them that we had decided to sell. You sold our house without telling me? It's in my name. I was the one who put the money down for it back in the day. You didn't contribute a penny just because it was old and used, remember? The real estate agent who got the story from my mother was happy to move quickly on the deal. Moreover, we were referred to a new property through the real estate agent and moved out in a hurry. Even more than that, the real estate agent was actually interested in the land rather than the house, so it was cleared in no time. My husband must have been shocked when he came home without knowing anything. I was thinking that we could talk about this when I got back. I have nothing I want to talk about. You should think about how much you've taken advantage of others and how much harm you've caused. My husband was crying and saying something like, but I didn't feel sorry for him at all. I kept my promise and left it clean. It's unrecognizable, it's so clean. I just said that and hung up the phone right away. I seemed to have a few more incoming calls after that, but I didn't care. I just went and took a bath with my twins. My husband was insistent that he didn't want to divorce, but thanks to persuasion from my in-laws, we finally managed to get divorced just the other day. Of course, there was property division and child support. My husband became infamous for hitting on coworkers despite being married and eventually quit his job. Now, thanks to connections from his parents, he seems to be working in a factory. He's a very prideful person, so I'm sure he's having a hard time every day. As for me, I'm living peacefully with my mother and children. Every day, I'm amazed at the difference between my ex-husband and my mother, and I never stop feeling grateful. I've come to realize once again that raising children is not something you do alone. Catherine comes over occasionally and plays with the kids. The kids still require a lot of care, but I think it'll be okay given the current situation. It seems like a bright future is in sight.